Hello and welcome to the Ultra Films YouTube channel. My name is Dylan, and today I'm going to be talking to you about episode 6 of Stranger Things Season 4, The Dive. We're going to kind of do the same thing as last week, where I'm going to go through chunks of the episode, not quite in order of what they happened, but just more of like what makes sense to talk about. So, we're going to start with after the plane crash from Murray and I can't remember her name, but after the plane crash, and we see that Yuri is all tied up with Joyce. Joyce and Murray kind of making it out safely after the plane crash, and Yuri tries to make a bargain to get them out, or to get himself out, essentially. And Murray just goes, "No, we can just leave you here. I think I can hear bears," because he had just came back from trying to scout the area a little bit. And then Yuri informs them where like his warehouse is located, where he had sent Hopper off to before ultimately betraying them, and that they need to go in between two mountains to get to the prison that they are going to try to get Hopper out of after they make it to the safe house. Then after that, we kind of get to Hopper and Enzo, and they're kind of talking, and they're talking, and the rest, or I guess they're kind of moving around, and then the rest of the prisoners are kind of being escorted to a dinner table, where like this really extravagant feast is kind of like spread out for them. And then everybody is kind of like sitting there talking and eating, and Hopper is the only one that's not really eating anything. He's actually just drinking booze the whole time. And then so they kind of start telling tales, or one of the guys starts telling tales of how his first night in, he saw a whole bunch of people come in here having an extravagant feast, and then they have to go out and fight the Demogorgon. And that they want the prisoners to be nice and full and strong so they can try to get as much training as possible. And Hopper just like kind of says like, this is bullshit, like that's not actually what they're doing, they're just trying to make us fatten up for the Demogorgon, when the Demogorgon ends up ultimately killing us and eating us, so it gets as strong as possible, because they're trying to make the Demogorgon a weapon for the KGB. He then tells everybody that there's really only one way to kill the Demogorgon. Well, he doesn't tell everybody. He tells Enzo after he ends up kind of like fake fighting, or I guess it was a real fight, but like intentionally getting attacked by the guards. He had saw one of the guards like flicking with a lighter, messing around with a lighter, so Hopper was like, ooh, I'm gonna get that lighter from him. So he doesn't intentionally like follow the rules that he's supposed to. Like he stops in the middle of the areaway, and he like knocks one of the guards down and out, and steals the lighter off of that guard. And then and Enzo is like, hey, why did you do that? And Hopper was like, there's only one way to kill the Demogorgon, or fend it off, really, and that's with fire. And so he like flicks the lighter, and it shows the flame instantly go up on the Zippo that he has there, leading us to believe that it's going to work perfectly and be able to fend off the Demogorgon, maybe even kill it, when they ultimately end up fighting it the next day. Uh, from there, we're going to go to Hopper's daughter, or Elle, and we see Brenner reveal the reason why, or the cause to why Elle lost her powers, and that is that it, like, a stroke, kind of like mental block kind of thing that she had, from when the Mind Flayer attacked like 6 months ago. And Brenner says that she can learn to reuse her powers once again. And so Brenner introduces Eleven to the hundreds of tapes that he has recorded of all of the events that transpired in Hawkins' lab, and explains to her that she would need to re-experience it like fully to get rid of that block that she has, to fully make her powers of use again. And that, but the reason why, and then he like tells her that the reason why she's not remembering these past events is because her mind is trying to is using a coping mechanism to protect her from her traumatic experiences. Afterwards, Eleven gets into the Nina project and proceeds to recall another memory fragment in one of the memories that Elle spends time with in the Rainbow Room with Peter, the friendly orderly that ends up teaching her more than not how to access like the full ability of her power. He kind of is like telling her to like, hey, drop that Plinko ball, like, and then try to move it to the one that you want it in, but use a like a memory that like makes you happy but also sad, or like angry. And so it goes through a couple more of those kind of memories, that in this kind of thing. And he also kind of explains in the memory that Brenner never tells the truth, and that like number one was like, there is a story going around that like number one never actually existed, but like, and he's like, remember, Brenner never tells the truth, so like number one, he's trying to get at the like that number one did exist, and that something happened to him. And then so like she kind of like remembers a memory of her mom coming to the facility to try to take her away, and she also kind of like remembers her birth, which is a little bit weird too. But I guess if you have psychic powers, remembering your birth is the least of your worries. And then shortly after that, Brenner comes in and guides all the kids to another lesson. And at the exercises, all the kids are taken to spar, or like training, or a training sparring segment, where they have to push each other outside of this like circle. And so like number two goes up and he starts just like pushing everybody out of the circle, like one by one by one, and then it's finally number two versus number 11, and number two gets the upper hand on her, and then 11 remembers what number one, or I guess the orderly says, and she ends up getting the upper hand on number two and pushes him out of the circle, which gives her extended time in the Rainbow Room alone, which is like a reward for them. They get to do whatever they want and practice whatever they want, because like all the toys inside of the Rainbow Room are designed to enhance their psychic powers in some way. And so later on, after that, she's in the Rainbow Room all by herself. And number 2, number 4, and number 2, 4, 5, and 3 all show up and start threatening her and using their telekinetic powers on her, and kind of pushing her like from one person to another, like in a like circle, and then finally they throw her into a wall, which ends up causing a concussion to her. But at that, like, it kind of like flashes back to 11, like in the room after everybody had gotten killed, and she's taken out of Nina and back to the nurses, and she tearfully tells Brenner that she like remembers what happened during the massacre, and that's like the end of Elle's portion of the episode. So then we'll go to the kids that are actually trying to find Elle, and they actually have gotten done with their trip from Nevada or California all the way up to Utah to go to Susie's house. And so they kind of get there and they find a extremely chaotic house. There's a whole bunch of kids running around. Some of them are doing like cowboys and Indians. Other of them are like making a movie where like one of the like daughters is like pretending to be choking, while the other one is like a film critic or a director making a film. All sorts of stuff. They finally like kind of like make their way through the house and up the stairs, and they meet the oldest child of the house, Eden. And Argyle just like, oh my god, she's beautiful. And there's this really funny interaction between like them like trying to talk. Like Argyle's trying to be like a kind of cool kind of guy, but ends up just kind of like tripping over his words kind of. And they like all kind of just leave that kind of like the interaction with Eden, and Argyle's like no longer there. And then so the room or the group goes to Susie's room to talk to her and try to get help finding out where Elle is. And she informs them that after helping Dustin, that she had gotten her computer taken away because what is it? It was too much focusing on something, like a boy, I guess. I can't remember exactly what it was. But she had gotten her computer taken away, and so the group has to figure out a way to get her to help them. So they make up a lie that they're trying to get Dustin a American Nintendo, and that she will help them, but they have to make a diversion to get into her dad's office, and he like never leaves his office. And so they kind of oh no, sorry, I do remember what they found out. That people found out that she had helped Dustin change his grades, and that's why she doesn't have her computer anymore. And so they end up kind of breaking into the dad's office by convincing the kids to make an even bigger ruckus down the stairs, and like shutting off the computer, making her dad, or not the computer, but like the electricity, making her dad go downstairs, where he kind of gets like bombarded with all the stuff that the people that walked into the house got bombarded with. And in that time, Susie's able to like access the computer, print off everything, let them know where they are, let them know where Elle is at, and like track the IP address to Nevada. And she prints it off, and as everybody's kind of leaving, they get back to the van and see Argyle and Eden like hanging out in the back of the van, where like Argyle's like kind of leaning into her, and they're both smoking weed. So it's kind of interesting, funny thing. But we'll move into the whole last portion of this kind of episode, where it's everybody back at Hawkins. And we'll start with the scene of the police chief interrogating Jason after just having witnessed his friend Patrick get killed by Vecna. And he's trying to like describe to the police what he saw, and they're not really like comprehending what he's telling them. And he's trying to say that like, no, like Eddie is the vessel for the devil, like he obtained the powers through a pact, and like he's using Dungeons and Dragons to make these powers even more extravagant, and this is how he's being able to kill people without even touching them. And the police kind of dismiss him, and they do think that Eddie is like ultimately the killer now, like full and for like the killer. And they kind of put out a ATB to find Eddie. They also, like the next morning, make a town hall meeting where like basically the whole town, besides like a few of the kids, are there. And they say that they're going to need to find Eddie. He is their prime suspect behind the several murders that has happened. And one of the citizens points out that like Christy Cunningham like died inside of his trailer. Like, how have they not like said that it was Eddie? At this, like Jason kind of like gets up and he starts basically a riot by using the same tactics that he does during his basketball games. He riles up all of the town folks, and they end up just kind of lynch mobbing, or like making a lynch mob trying to look for Eddie. And then at this, kind of the Wheelers and the Sinclairs and Dustin's mom get really like worried because they know that like the kids are going and trying to help Eddie, or at least suspect it. And because Eddie is part of the Hellfire Club, they're part of the Hellfire Club, so they've probably had interactions with him, and so they're just worried for the safety of their kids. And so they get back to the house and try to like find the kids, ultimately with no success really. And at that, we kind of move into the kids group proper, because right after the town hall meeting, we see Eddie go to like a construction site and steal a walkie-talkie so he can talk to Dustin. And after stealing the walkie-talkie, he runs off into the forest, or into the woods, not forest, but and gets in contact with Dustin, and tells Dustin that they are or he is hiding out at Skull Rock, and Dustin and Nancy, Robin, Lucas, and Steve, Max all kind of run off to try to meet up with Eddie again. And they're trying to find Skull Rock, and Dustin has his compass out, and Steve keeps going, no, it's this way, and Dustin's like, no, but my compass says it's this way. And Steve's like, no, I think I would know where Skull Rock is. It's like my hangout spot. It's where I bring girls to like make out with them. Like, I know where it is. So they finally like resign to Steve leading the way, and they run back into Eddie. And while like Eddie's trying to explain everything to them, Dustin finally realizes what's going on. That there's a magnetic pole that is pulling his compass in the direction of Lover's Lake. And he kind of realizes that the attacks that Vecna is causing a miniature gate to open wherever he's attacking. And so they end up calling this one the Watergate, which is a reference to the Nixon debacle that happened in like the 60s and 70s kind of time frame. I believe it was 60s and 70s. Maybe it was early 80s, but early enough to for Dustin to know about it and have it be kind of like fresh for him. But they kind of realize that the electromagnetic fields is causing this, and it will lead them to the Upside Down. So the group starts following the trails to find somewhere in Lover's Lake that they can get to the Upside Down. And so they finally get to Lover's Lake, and it's pretty dark now when they get there. And Nancy, Robin, and Eddie and Steve all hop onto a boat, leaving Dustin, Lucas, and Max on the shore. And they kind of paddle out into the middle of the lake, and Steve goes, don't worry, I'll hop in and check out the bottom of the lake to try to find where this portal could be, this gate. And so he explains like that he's the only one that can do it because he was varsity swimmer, so on and so forth. And so he jumps in with a flashlight, and he kind of like he's looking around, and he does ultimately find the gate. But when he does, he goes back up to the top of the water and lets the group know that he had found it. And then basically, like right as he does that, he's telling them, and he gets dragged back down. And at this, Nancy jumps in first, followed by Robin, then Eddie, all to try to go and save him. Kind of as this is happening, the cops show up at the same time, and Max, Lucas, and Dustin kind of like run to intercept and make it to where the cops can't find the group that's on the lake. And then we kind of go to the Upside Down, where we see Steve trying to outrun these like bats. The show calls them demo bats. And he's doing an okay at like fighting them off. The demo bats, they're kind of like a weird, like, best way to describe them is if you've seen Shang-Chi. They're kind of like the soul suckers, when they suck out the soul of the person, like their overall aesthetic looks like them. The creature that they most commonly like stylistically resemble, to me though, as far as like what they look like and what they do, is a Sturge from Dungeons and Dragons. I'm sure it's what they were like trying to do, but they couldn't get like the perfect match as far as like look for them. But they kind of like have a big needle nose, and instead of having a big needle nose, these creatures have like a really long tail that they kind of use in the same way. To like kind of stab somebody and like try to pin them down, and ultimately just one of them isn't strong, but when they attack in a party they're really strong, and that's what these demo bats do. And they kind of have the same like thing, so like they end up knocking Steve to the ground and like swarm him and slowly try to like maul him, and like one will bite his stomach and Steve will slap it off, and another one will bite Steve's stomach and Steve will slap that off, and then ultimately at the end of the episode Steve is just overran by like 3 of these ones, with one of them having its neck around or its tail around his neck, and he's trying to just like fight them off, but he's screaming in pain, and it slowly ends up going into darkness. But these things are like just trying to suck the life force out of him, and they're very similar to the Sturges in general. In Dungeons and Dragons, like they do try to suck the life force out of somebody. Ultimately, I think this was probably my favorite episode, besides for like the mid-season finale, which will be the next one I talk to you guys about. Had a lot of build up, like a lot of good like scenes from Dustin, who I think ultimately might be one of my favorite characters. I think Dustin, Steve, and Eddie are my favorites. Who are your guys' favorites? Tell me down in the comments. But I'm actually very interested in hearing what you guys think. Who are the favorites from you guys? But I'll leave it at that. Don't forget to comment whatever your favorite characters are. If you have any questions, let me know. So on and so forth. Like, subscribe. I'm Dylan, and thank you for listening. Have a good day.